I'll be your conductor and guide as we step back in time to the days of the Comstock Load and the history of the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. Now, folks, I do have a couple of requests of you to make your trip a little safer and a little bit more pleasant.
Everything else is good. Blood sugar is good. Cholesterol is good. Everything's good. But it's good because I take pills that make me good. Without those pills,
Go straight down 3,265 feet into the earth. That's about 2/3 of a mile. The combination shaft was a joint mining effort between 4 mining companies on the Comstock Lode. In their wisdom, they thought a main vein of ore existed directly under that spot. If they sunk that mine shaft, well, they'd all become very rich. The first problem was once that shaft reached the 1,600-foot level, the shaft and all the tunnels connected to it flooded with highly mineralized hot groundwater. Coming into those tunnels at 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and that scalded many of the miners. They installed 4 massive Cornish pumps that removed up to 5 million gallons of water each day just to keep mining. Well, folks, that wasn't the worst problem. The worst problem, there was no main vein of ore. Well, that shaft only brought up some very low-grade ore. It was eventually declared a $7 million financial disaster. One of the very few mines on the Comstock Lode that never made 1 penny of profit. Now, folks, we're about to pass underneath a 160-year-old ore trestle. Now, this is how ore was brought from mines on the west side of the rails over to that crusher mill on the east side. As we go underneath this trestle, I'd like you folks to take a look at those large rocks laying on the ground underneath it. Those large rocks laying there are actual gold and silver ore that is laid on the ground a century and a half. Now, the reason these rocks are on the ground is when they brought the ore across this trestle, if a rock was too big to go through that crusher machinery, well, folks, they just pushed that rock right off the top of the trestle. So many of you folks are feeling a little bit lucky today. Come on back, Cradle, with a big, big hammer. Give a little work on one of those rocks. It might just strike your fortune. It's a bit luckier than one of those slot machines. Now, when mining began on the Comstock Lode around 1860, the only way to get the ore down to the mills on the Carson River, and it took up to a week for a wagon load of ore to make it down the mountains. In 1869, a man named William Sharon on the board of directors of the Bank of California thought it would be profitable for that bank to build a railroad between Carson City and Virginia City. Construction began in February 1869 with 1,500 workers employed to build the line. Coming the 21 miles from Carson City to Virginia City, 7 tunnels were dug through the Washoe Mountains, and the railroad comes up nearly 1,600 feet in elevation, making us one of America's true mountain railroads. It took 11 months to build this railroad. The first passengers were uncovered in Virginia City in January 1870. In just a few moments, we're going to be passing underneath the Highway 341 overpass. At one time, this was tunnel number 5 of those 7 tunnels between Carson City and Virginia City. When that highway was built in 1932, they took the whole top off that mountain, and it was called Daylight the Tunnel. Now, that didn't work out pretty well. If you'll take a look outside, you'll notice it's daylight. Take a look at those great big steel columns beneath it. You folks might notice the same thing we did. Those great big steel columns. Well, they don't even touch that bridge at all. And that might be something that we should discuss with the highway department. Well, folks, I do believe that bridge was a government job. Now, once we go underneath this overpass and get on the other side of it, off the east side of the train, just over the rails, you'll see about 2,500 feet into the earth. The two owners of this shaft, well, they brought a fair amount of oil out of it. Made some pretty darn good money. But like some of the mine owners during that period of time, those two fellows were a little bit shady and a whole lot greedy. They wanted more money. They came up with the idea to start the rumor on the San Francisco Stock Exchange that the $1 billion shaft was about to hit the big bonanza. Folks in gold country in the early 1870s, when rumors like that started, investors came very quickly. In less than 3 weeks' time, more than $3.7 million was invested in stock in the $1 billion shaft. And as soon as all that money cleared the San Francisco Stock Exchange and ended up as cash in their pockets, the folks at that time, those two fellows just sat back and smiled and declared this shaft a bust and closed it. Well, don't feel too bad now for all those folks that got swindled out of all their money investing in it. They all did get something. They all got the shaft. Folks, if you take a look down into one of our beautiful dramatic canyons, in the early morning hours, you often see a lot of wildlife that roam here. We do have those herds of wild mustangs, and of course we're very proud. We also have a lot of coyote, mule deer, black-tailed deer, jackrabbits, cottontails. We've got the cutest ground squirrels this side of the Sierra Nevadas. We've got the red-tailed hawk, the California quail, and the bad boys up the desert as well, the Great Basin rattlesnake, some mountain lion, and some bobcat. Now you might notice that there are no lumber-producing trees up here in the Washoe Mountains. Folks, we are in an area called high desert, at over 6,200 feet in elevation. There's very little water up here to support that type of growth. All the lumber for the mines, mills, homes, and businesses came from the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains. And most all of that lumber was brought here by the Virginia Trucking Railroad. The trees you do see growing here, the larger one is the pinyon pine. Now that's one of Nevada's state trees. The smaller, lighter colored tree, well, that's the mountain juniper. Around the next curve, off the east side of the train, on the bluff nearest us, you'll see the remains of the East Yellow Jacket mine. Now, the East Yellow Jacket mine is one of the highest producing mines on the Comstock Loop. It's also the site of the greatest disaster ever on the Comstock. In late 1869, a fire broke out at the 800-foot level in the East Yellow Jacket shaft. Folks, that fire took the lives of 39 miners. Eventually, they were able to recover 34 of those poor souls. 5 of them were just simply never found. Now, folks, we're about to enter tunnel number 4. For those of you who might be afraid of the dark when we go through the tunnel, please close your eyes. Tunnel number 4 is 456 feet long from end to end. It took those workers in 1869 2.5 months to dig this tunnel through solid rock, using pick and shovel only. They had a nickname at that time. They were called bunkers, and that was a name of respect for them. They would live in those mines 6 days a week, 8 hours a day in temperatures around 120 degrees at the lower levels. Now at those temperatures, they can only work about 15 minutes at a time. Then they would have to proceed upward in the main shaft. Officers around the world made about 80 cents a day for their labor. Miners on the Comstock load were in such high demand, they became the highest paid miners in the world at $4 a day. Now folks, that's the equivalent of $56 per hour now. And at the end of their shift, they could go to Virginia City. They could order a 2-inch thick steak weighing about 2 pounds and a great big plate of beans. And folks, that meal would cost them 40 cents. We're going to be looking down into Gold Canyon over the town of Gold Hill. Coming into view down in the canyon, the large steel building you'll see down there at one time was the Crown Point Mill. One of the functions of the mills on the Comstock was to crush that old rock into near dust. That dust would then be taken down to the processing plants on the Carson River, where the gold and silver would be extracted by the mercury or cyanide recovery process. Now coming into view down in the canyon, you folks will also see the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon. Now this is the oldest continually operating hotel in Nevada. It opened in 1859 as a tent saloon. The stone hotel portion that you folks will see up front, well, that was added 2 years later in 1861. Now, folks, it's still in business today, just as it was in 1859. The original owners of that hotel are still dead. The big front building with the 3 steel doors on the front of it at one time was the Bank of California. Now, this area of Gold Hill was known as the Maynard Block, one of the cash and stock exchange areas along the Comstock Road. Coming around the curve to the grade crossing off the east side, you'll see the monument to the Liberty Volunteer Fire Company. Now these were the brave volunteer firefighters that protected Gold Hill from fires in the mines and the desert. Now this monument is located right where the original fire hall once stood, just next to the railroad tracks. The original fire hall, well, it burned up in a fire. Now just past the grade crossing is the 1869 station as the Virginia and Kentucky Railroad built to the town of Gold Hill. V&T Railroad owned and operated this railroad station from 1869 until this line of Virginia City was abandoned in 1938. At that time, the railroad sold the station and all the property around it to Story County, Nevada, for the sum of $1. Now folks, coming up to the rear of the train off the west side, on that little rise above us and to our rear, you'll see the remains of the North Yellow Jacket Shaft. Now a little bit about how it all works, folks. That large tower up on the hill is called the head crane. That was used to hoist the off front cadets in large steel buckets. That ore would then be dumped down those 2 steep wood chutes into what's called the ore bin at the bottom. As we pass this ore bin, you'll see 3 doors on the front that would be open. That ore would then be dumped into railroad cars to be taken for crushing and processing. Now Folks, as the train does come to a stop here, something a little interesting off the east side. Now, if you look right over the bluff, you'll see the main headframe of the Yellow Jacket Mining Complex. Notice those huge wooden timbers have been plastered with concrete. Folks, that was done in an effort to help prevent that headframe from burning in the event of a fire. Now, folks, at this point, I'm going to be moving back up the loading platform between the cars. On our way back to Virginia City, I do have a little bit more to show you and some things to tell you about. Fence all the way around it. Personally, I think the government keeps aliens up there now. I think that's Area 52. Miners first came to the Comstock lode, the only thing they knew that was there to dig for was gold. And while they were digging for that gold, they kept running into a problem. Folks, it was something they called the infernal blue muck. It was a blue-gray clay to accumulate huge piles of that blue muck next to the mining claims. So much that they began to haul it by the wagon load to the brand new town of Virginia City and throw it on the streets. Now they did that because that blue muck, it dried so hard, it packed so well, it filled those potholes. And it made excellent tracking for the wagons and mules. And that was especially true during those wet winter months. Now, after that discovery, silver was made in that blue muck. Virginia City's population began to grow. What started off as about 300 or 400 people there. After the silver discovery was made, the Virginia City's population swelled almost overnight to over 30,000 people at its peak. And folks, that legend that you might have heard, well, paved with silver. And folks, you can bet, once those miners heard the results of that assay, well, they grabbed their picks and shovels, they went up to the streets of Virginia City, and well, those fellows just went to town. And it took a whole lot of road repair to fix what they dug up. Still to this day, there is over 750 miles of mine shafts and tunnels going down 3,000 feet deep, and even deeper than that up here along the Comstock Lode. Now, coming up on the east side of the train is our restoration and repair shop. Now, this is where our small crew works so hard to keep these beautiful antique locomotives and cars running and in good condition. Our shops are located at the same location, the original V&T shop from As we come around the curve by our water tower, Our view off the west side of the train is blocked by that little hill. But now once we come around the curve and reach our shop grade crossing, if you folks will look just above our rails up the hill, you'll see that great big tan building with the red roof on it. Folks, that building is the Fort Ward School. It was built in 1876. It graduated its last class of students in 1936. When they built that building, they put a brand new modern innovation in it. It was something that became very popular at that time with the students and the teachers. It became so popular, it is still being used in schools today. It's called indoor toilets. The Fourth Ward School does have a wonderful tour. Pretty interesting to see how our methods and standards of education. Now once we clear this little bluff of tailings off the east side, you'll get a glimpse out 6 Mile Canyon, way out to those Carson Plains. It was out on those Carson Plains in 1860. There was a little ink spot on the map, a place called Desert Wells. Desert Wells was the Pony Express stop for the brief time the Pony Express ran. It became a stagecoach stop after that. In 1862, a young man came to Desert Wells. He stayed there about 3 weeks before moving up to Virginia City. His name was Samuel Langhorne Clemens. When he arrived in Virginia City, he got a job in the newspaper in town, the Territorial Enterprise. And for the years he lived in our town, he wrote a lot of stories and articles for that newspaper. And while he lived in Virginia City, he also changed his name to that which we know him as today, Mark Twain. Mark Twain went on to become one of the greatest authors in all of American history, writing wonderful books and stories right here in Virginia City. Well, folks, we're approaching the Virginia City station. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you folks very much for riding with me today on this little trip through history. While you're here in Virginia City, please do take advantage of some of the shops and museums. I know you'll enjoy them. And wherever your travels do take you, please do drive carefully. Now, thank you once again for riding with me, folks. I really do hope you enjoyed it, had a good time, maybe even learned a little bit about the history of the Comstock Lode and the Virginia Truckee Railroad. I truly do hope I did a good job for you. Now, folks,
what's going on?
Here you go. So was that not more about the love or more about the cost? So it looks expensive.
It looks expensive, yeah.
Are you an entertainer?
No.
You look like one. Yeah, I definitely could be the next Shania Twain.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice hat.
I literally was, I was like, no!
I told her, I know. But it just the wind is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I thought I had it snug, but it was not.
My brother-in-law almost lost his too. So
Oh, yeah, it just happened so quickly. Yeah,
I'm glad you guys got it.
I know, me too, and it was just like